Um, for the most part, our recruitment campaigns run an average of 3.5 to 8%, depending on how targeted the list is, which is usually a very good return for click-through. Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday are still considered the best days to send email, just because Mondays people have a lot of stuff in their boxes, and Fridays a lot of people are out of the office. However, there's actually research that comes out frequently on what's the best day to send email, and whenever that research comes out, then everybody switches their send to that day, and then they get all the email, and then that day is no longer the greatest. But usually you're safe Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. And there's many different types of lists out there. The job boards all have lists, and they're pretty good. Beyond.com has one of the best lists that we've used in the past few years. Almost all of our clients are surprised by the amount of response because most people don't know who the hell Beyond.com is. They're actually a network of niche career sites, and through this network they collect a lot of opt-ins to their email marketing database. And so they can reach a whole bunch of different people in many different industries, and we've seen it work really well for most clients. I usually feel like that's a buy that I can stand behind pretty strongly. And most clients are pleasantly surprised. But Monster Target Mail is one, HotJobs has one, CareerBuilder has one. But generally, using these job boards, you're reaching out to a more active candidate than if you're using a publisher list, but these are usually good places to get resumes. Publisher lists are great because they have nothing really to do with career. These are all passive candidates. These people are signed up to get industry-related news. And there are, I listed two here, Federal Computer Week and EE Times, but there are about 1 million of these. For every single industry and every single different type of target. And usually they're effective for reaching into, and especially for getting very specific candidates that might have to have certain experience, because these lists are usually very targetable. There's also something called consolidated lists, and some people might offer these to you. Don't use them. These are basically lists that come from multiple sources, and that the person who's offering the list doesn't have a relationship with those candidates. Most times, the publisher lists, the job boards, they have a relationship with those candidates. The candidates frequently get mail from those publishers. It's not going to be a surprise, but consolidated lists, those people basically take emails from a whole bunch of different places and stick them in one bin, and then we'll try to sell them to people. And they're usually pretty cheap. If your email list is extremely cheap, you should be suspicious. Email is a permission-based activity. So anybody that you email should be somebody who either has permission from you to email them or permission from the publisher to email them. This isn't the case of you sending an email to one individual, but when you're sending a mass email, there's something called CAN spam, which are regulations around how you use email. And CAN spam is important because you don't want to appear to be spamming people. Most people don't like spam. And if you do spam people, you can get yourself on blacklist so that your emails don't get through a lot of the junk folders or get through to the inboxes. They get stuck in the junk folders. So usually with email, it's best to just practice a little bit of respect. So if somebody hasn't emailed you, don't send a mass email out to them. You could send them a direct message if you're really interested in recruiting them, of course, because that's just you reaching out to one person. But sending out a big broadcast to people who you have any permission to send to is usually how to do email marketing correctly. Subject lines are very important. You don't want to use anything that you think is too catchy, or some people try to use like free something, or they try to be really super creative with the subject line. But it's usually not a good idea. It's usually best to be pretty specific and descriptive with the subject line. So career opportunities from Bernard Hoder's crew. or digital media opportunities from Bernard Hoda's group. Something very specific so that when the candidate gets it, they know what it's about and they know it's not something that could be a phishing attempt or any type of, if they don't know that they're getting it from you necessarily, they'll know that it's a legitimate email. Keeping emails concise with a lot of links. Generally, or as a rule of thumb, the more links, the higher the click-through rate. You don't want to get excessive. You don't want to have 100 links in an email, but you want to use as many appropriate links as possible. And then the one thing, like if you take, if you take one thing away from the slide, this is the most important thing. Less than 3 paragraphs of text is the factor most directly related to success. I have looked at thousands of pieces of creative and looked at the results from them. And I actually did a study where I correlated the results to the email length. And the most important thing, didn't matter what the offer was for, didn't matter how many links, or I mean it matters to some degree, but not as much, how many links are in it. But what mattered the most was that it was short and concise, because people aren't going to read through a really long message. Make sure that all the links that are in your email that are displayed as a graphic are also displayed as a text link. Some people have images turned off, and if the ways to respond in your email don't show up as a text link somewhere, they might not see any place to respond. Make sure that all the important content is in the text as well. So sometimes people make the mistake of putting their information in the header of the email in a graphic, and then if that graphic doesn't show up, when it comes to the user, all they see is like text, and they're like, they don't even know who it's from. So it's very important to make sure that you sort of are somewhat redundant in restating the information that's in the graphic. Also, make sure that the top images aren't that deep. I've seen emails where the graphic images is like this big, and then the message is down here. So people who open up that message in a preview pane or who don't like to scroll a whole lot aren't going to see the main part of your message. So try to keep the message, the graphics, not very deep. About 300 pixels is the rule of thumb. If no maximum is given when if you don't have any specs from the publisher, don't go over 600 pixels wide. Because the way that a lot of the internet email service providers like Yahoo and Google are created, the way that their screen sizes are set up and the way their interfaces are, 600 pixels is going to fit in there. And if you go any higher than that, people might have to scroll horizontally to see your message. So 600 pixels is a good rule of thumb. And then the can spam. There's a rule of can spam where you need to include your physical address and include an unsubscribe list, or a way to unsubscribe. You only need to do that if you're sending it from your own systems, or if the publisher requires it. Sometimes with say lists like Beyond.com doesn't require that because they put their own physical address and unsubscribe links in there because they basically own that link. When you unsubscribe from Beyond, you unsubscribe from Beyond and not necessarily from the employer. But it's a good thing to keep in mind because some lists will require it. And then if you're doing email marketing with a publisher and you have your own email list that you use at home that people have opted into and that people have unsubscribed from, you may need to provide that publisher with what's called a suppression list. And that's basically a list that says these are people that don't want to be emailed by us. Because if you send out something, if somebody has said to you, don't email me anymore, and then you send it through a publisher, they might get a little annoyed. So it is something that you might want to keep in mind if you have your own relationship marketing system. And if you have it, it should be very easy to get. If you don't have a relationship marketing system, so nobody's ever told you, don't email me, then you're good.